Hi, everybody. Okay, so let's see if I'm on. We have a lot of breaking news today. Lots of breaking news. On day 1,847, 1,847 days since Richard, our son, was forcibly removed from his barracks room there on Fort Bliss, and his life was brutally taken from him. He was silenced for being a whistleblower reporting criminal trafficking along the El Paso borderland and into Fort Bliss, and also having information about the Walmart mass uh, shooting incident, massacre. I would say the massacre. He had information, he had the connections to here and over here. He was also the guidon bearer. My dad told me that he would be in the room in the oh orderly room. That's right, in the orderly room, and he would absolutely hear things going on with platoon leader Dallas Hart and others. And so he absolutely, it's not absurd. Um, and when you look at all of the other evidence, everything else from this, everything, um, it, what it shows, the pattern is, make sure that I'm on, is that Richard was, let's see, make sure I can see everything. Yeah, there it goes. Okay. So that Richard was a whistleblower before the Walmart mass shooting of August 3rd, 2019, that he was absolutely corroborating President Trump's administration, the audits that were going on about the criminal trafficking along the um, the El Paso borderland. This is so important to understand this with the raid on Bolton's home today to make the connections. When President Trump came in 2017, when he was sworn in, he absolutely went right to that border, El Paso as the epicenter of the criminal trafficking, and he was being internally in his own staff. Um, you would call that mutiny, right? You would call that mutiny, being opposed in a way that was illegal. You can oppose legally, right? But they were playing dirty. They were absolutely playing dirty. And the evidence is very clear, and the evidence is coming out. And Richard was a whistleblower during that time in 2019. In 2019. So that's very important because um, there was no stopping the the people backing President Trump up, wanting to control the criminal activity coming through that border. And so they wanted that border secured. They wanted that border, those coming back and forth, vetted. But those that were making the billions of dollars, right? The elite group that don't have to worry about living in El Paso without security, that they have tons of security, right? And they're making the money off of the border. They didn't want a secured border, a secured Fort Bliss. Clearly, all the evidence shows that. And, you can even see that in Washington, D.C. right now. You have, because Richard's father was with the old guard, he was very privileged and honored to be chosen to be the physician assistant for the old guard when he was serving, he served 30 years in the army. And he just loved it. He loved being with the old guard. So we lived in the DC area um, for 5 years. For 5 years, one of those was uh, with the old guard, and so you got a very good picture of what was going on in Washington D.C. And I was teaching part time at a friend's school there, which is a Quaker school, after school teens, uh, troubled teens. I was teaching there, and I had a very good relationship with them. And one day, couple days, probably a few times, one of my students would miss the bus, right? And I said, okay, well, I'll give you a lift. Um, and, he would say to me, Mrs. Halliday, you have to drop me off at this certain point. You can't go further than this point in DC because your life would be in danger. And so I said, are you sure? And because I didn't want him to have to walk um, in that dangerous area where he lived. Um, but he insisted. And so I dropped him off there, and he would walk in. So it was at that time very dangerous, very, very dangerous. And, the statistics coming out is that those that are attacked and lose their life in the attack are mostly minorities, by like huge amounts, huge amounts. And so to have the leadership in Washington, D.C., not want to protect the people of Washington, D.C., what are they making money on? Right? Because they're putting the people in danger, and they're, always talking about that they're for minorities, but they're allowing the minorities to be the ones in danger and the ones that are being hurt, you know. So it's really, they're they're liars. They're absolutely liars. And so President Trump, of course, federally took over Washington D.C., and now the death rates have just plummeted, and the carjackings have just plummeted, right? Saving, think about how many in just these, what, maybe 2 weeks, 2 weeks, how many minorities that President Trump has saved. And yet they have put out a false narrative with the Walmart mass shooting case in 2019, calling him all kinds of derogatory names, right? All kinds, saying that he doesn't like minorities. And here he is saving the lives of minorities. And the securing of the border in El Paso, let's compare it. Because his record shows a pattern of saving the lives of minorities, saving the lives of all people, of all people. And securing the border in El Paso when there's criminal trafficking going on. And most of that criminal trafficking, well, not most of it, a lot of it is Russians, y'all. There's a lot of Russians. There's a lot of Central Americans. There's a lot of islanders, right? That were being trafficked, through the border. And then, of course, you have the rise of the cartel through all of this weapon smuggling, and the weapons aren't any good if you don't have ammunition. And of course, so you have the ammunition smuggling, and then you have all kinds of other products, all kinds of other parts, car parts, a lot of things with cars, right? That's going on at the border. And then you have the fights between them because of this criminal trafficking, right? And then you have the most brutal murders, the most brutal murders because of the lawlessness. And you have John Bolton and uh, retired General John Kelly, long history of having the positions to secure that border, to absolutely make a difference in the crime. And yet they didn't. They didn't. And when President Trump came in 2017, he made it his mission to do something about it, to bring law and order. And he met with opposition. And that opposition was General John Kelly and John Bolton, okay, and many others. But these are like the highest leaders, the highest echelon leaders, right there in the same office with President Trump, right in the same administration. And of course, they were both fired. And Richard was a whistleblower in 2019 that sided with President Trump. Okay. Um, Richard didn't want the lawlessness. He didn't want the criminal trafficking. He didn't want the political attacks. And the Walmart mass shooting absolutely was an orchestrated. We know now the evidence is so overwhelming. Anyone that says it's ludicrous has not paid attention, is having those squiggly things in their eyes because they've been hypnotized or they're a part of the orchestration. Okay, there's no other option there because the evidence is so overwhelmingly that the Walmart mass shooting was orchestrated to um, be bloody, and there's other suspicions about each and every one that was killed because of their connections. The connections of Alexander Gerhard Hofmann, the German national, Roth, then also Maria Eugenia Lagareth Roth, too. And then you have David Johnson and his connections, um, family connections. You have the Unchandos and those connections. Um, you have injured criminal, absolutely criminal, Ernest Christopher Grant, right, who was a false witness, which makes him a double criminal, triple criminal. He's like a quadruple criminal, and trying to be an imposter at the same time. Um, so there is also Memo Garcia. Memo Garcia and his whole case is also very, very interesting. And I guess now is as good as time to do the breaking news. The breaking news is we have confirmed that hospital staff confirmed that um, that Memo Garcia, who was called Junior, right? That Memo Garcia confided in them that Patrick Crucius was not his shooter. Okay? That Patrick Crucius was not his shooter and that there were multiple shooters. Now, that's very interesting to us, and more people are coming forward. And now we have it confirmed that hospital staff were entrusted with this information by Memo Garcia before he also lost his life at the very same time Glennon Oakley Jr. lost his life also. So, two major witnesses of multiple shooters in the Walmart mass shooting case, and they lost their life at the very same time. And this is, you know, I mean, really, this adds another huge dimension and huge evidence to the mountain of evidence that we have that confirm that the Walmart mass shooting, which Richard is a whistleblower for, and he also lost his life, that it was orchestrated. It was orchestrated, and it was orchestrated to be bloody. I want to make sure that that is clear, and that they would target with the narrative. They would target President Trump's administration, sabotage his administration, sabotage his reelection, and sabotage his policies of border security. And this is very, very clear. This is not me being one sided or another. This is me just reporting the evidence. And now we have the confirmation that hospital staff were entrusted by Memo Garcia before he lost his life, that he said that Patrick Crucius was not his shooter, and that there were multiple shooters. Now, with that breaking news, that is huge breaking news, right? And it comes on the day of the anniversary of the death of Julio Cordero, the retired FBI agent that was Poison Pond's famous, heroic agent that absolutely was exposing insiders in the system that were being criminal, and it was called Operation Poison Pawns. Pawns being Pawns, like on a chessboard, and he never stopped, because of our connections, and the information that we're getting, the intel that we're getting. He never stopped investigating, right? He always wanted to know more. Of course, once an FBI agent, you're always an FBI agent. And the breaking news is, and I have it, I have some new, there's just so much. Um, and I'm going to try to do this by heart. But he was, Julio Cordero, the retired FBI Poison Pawns agent, FBI agent, totally heroic, probably the best FBI agent that the El Paso field office that I know of has ever had. Okay, the best. Because when you look at his record, you're like, wow, we really have a a a grounded and ethical FBI agent in the El Paso field office. Wowzer, let's celebrate, right? And so we really do want to mark this day, the 1 year anniversary, with memory of him, and to also say that there's conflicts of interest in this year and the investigation into his death. So we have confirmed, and this is double breaking news today, double breaking news, that we have confirmed that the El Paso ISD police officer that shot Julio Cordero, um, lethally shot Julio Cordero, um, is friends with DA James Benoit Montoya, that they are old high school mates. Um, and this is a huge conflict of interest, okay? Because why hasn't his name been released? Why hasn't the body cam footage been released? And um, the other problem is that Manuel Chavira, the chief of police, uh, there was investigations going on about him because he was not a licensed peace officer when he was appointed as the chief of police. And that was just days after the Walmart mass shooting, okay, which he had a big part in. Okay, he had a very big part in. And, it's like there's another conflict of interest there. Why, uh, well, um, why is that being all covered up? That's what, especially when you have an officer that is good friends with James Bonneau Montoya, and they're not releasing the name and they're not releasing the body cam footage. Um, the other uh, the other information is that Company E, the Texas Rangers DPS Company E, was also looking into Julio Cordero's death and what surrounded it. Why? That is a huge conflict of interest because Gustavo Sanchez is brother-in-law to Manuel Chavira. Okay, and Cody Carter is also Company E, and he has also conflict of interest with the DA's office, um, and so cannot be allowed to investigate Julio Cordero's death. Uh, Company E needs to recuse themselves totally, and they haven't. And the transparency is not forthcoming. And I think that the family deserves transparency, just like we feel like we deserve transparency in our son's case. So this is really double breaking news, then triple breaking news with Memo Memo Garcia and him saying that Patrick Crucius was not the man that shot him, and also that he confirmed that there were multiple shooters. Now, so rest in peace, Julio Cordero. Rest in peace, Memo Garcia. And we want to also look at the videos that we have released with this individual said to be Patrick Crucius, Pat C, in the parking lot. Okay, and when he comes up to Maria's body, clearly he is not the one that shot her either. And then when he's in the store, with we call my mom calls it the doofus walk. That one scene, if you look at the YouTube video, and he's walking, he doesn't even he's relaxed. He's not even meaning to. It looks like he's playing some laser tag, and then he has his gun pointed down, and he's coming up to the bodies of the Anchandos. And you can see there had already been some conflict there because a couple of the poles are laying down, right? So there is a little bit of chaos there, and the rest of the store is pristine, right? Except for when he comes in, you don't really get to see the whole entrance walk where Alexander Hoffman is. But the point that's been released to us is that Alexander, the German national, Alexander Gerhard Hoffman, who is laying there with half his head missing. Literally, I'm not joking. It's just horrifying. Um, i he is said to be the first victim, the first one shot. But you have the way the film is, it just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense unless there were multiple shooters and some that went in, and that he was the first. And like all the forensics would show it, the time of death would show it, and of course, we want to know who the shooters were, because these are suspects in our son's case, you see, because the two cases are tied together. They're absolutely tied together. And the same people that carried out this kind of brutality is the same people that carried out the brutality in our son's case. And that's why we're interested in who the other shooters are. Okay, because clearly Patrick Crucius is a patsy. Patrick Crucius is, well, Joe Spencer is on audio saying that Patrick Crucius admitted to killing one or two. But, 23 were killed, not just one or two. And for that one or two, he's very guilty and he should spend the rest of his life in that prison. So, I'm not saying that Patrick Crucius is innocent at all. I'm saying that this Walmart mass shooting that Richard had information on, and that made him a huge risk to the cartel tied established criminal traffickers, and those that profited off of it. Um, Absolutely was silent, had information about the Walmart mass shooting and also the criminal trafficking. I don't think you can, if you have some Walmart information, then you absolutely get the criminal trafficking information to go along with it. I really, absolutely, because it's the same group, right? So, so that's why the evidence from Memo Garcia is so relevant, because it absolutely is corroborated with the video, with the other information that we have. And then also um, the same thing that Richard was reporting on is the same thing that Julio Cordero was investigating as an FBI agent. And even after that, we have that confirmed too. He never ever stopped looking into things. Um, and so, these all fit together. They're not exclusive. It all fits together. And that's what makes these current events so incredible, because now we have the FBI and they have to do it. They have to do it. They have to go and search John Bolton's house because of these documents, right? These documents that now we believe have a real possibility in connecting all the dots with like John Kelly and at the border, because General John Kelly, a Marine general, is very connected with the El Paso borderland. Okay, he was Southcom commander. He was the Southcom commander, and then of course he went and worked for President Trump in all the intelligence with John Bolton. And there was some reporting that they had a big knockout fight in the middle of the hallway. But y'all, I don't know if that was what is that, Kabuki theater or whatever, because so much stuff is like, the evidence confirms that Bolton and Kelly had much, much more in common than they did in disagreeing, and that they both betrayed President Trump and America. They both are traitors. That's very clear to me. And when you have someone like John Kelly having so much power over the border and allowing it to continue, and not just to continue, but to grow. And for him to have a business, an LLC, that supplies to taken children, or to these unaccompanied minors, right? That he was providing supplies for that, making money off of it. And then also going over and working, after he betrayed and was fired by President Trump, going over and advising the Pan Party Sinaloa cartel governor of Chihuahua, Mexico, Maru Campos. And I think what the Mexicans call it, diarrhea Marolanda. I think that's what we have here because this is what listening to General Kelly gives you, diarrhea Marolanda, and he's advising them, and now you see the results of the Plenitude crematorium, the corpse stacker, Raphael, right? Raphael Quran, um, you know, with stacking bodies for years, and letting the rats eat through them and everything. And they're, absolutely connected to El Paso, absolutely connected to Fort Bliss through Purchase Funeral Homes, through Martin Funeral Homes, Sunset Funeral Homes. Um, so this is very, it's all connected, and we have put together an article uh, really explaining General John Kelly's um, betrayal. And the other point is, at Christmas time, um, it was so strange because we're reporting on all of this, and Bob Moore, he wanted to threaten us. He wanted to uh, intimidate us. And so all of a sudden, this lawyer that's connected to John Kelly, this is how John Kelly came into our scope. Because on the 26th of December, I kid you not, the 26th of December, 2024, we were targeted. We were targeted by this lawyer that is connected to retired General John Kelly for El Paso Matters, for Bob Moore. To threaten us, right? So that we just go away. Let's make their life miserable, and then they'll just go away, and they'll just say, "Oh well, I guess we can't get answers for our son." That's what they wanted from us, right? And we would be very bad parents if we, knowing what we know, the brutality that they showed our son, and also it being part of the institution. He was killed on Fort Bliss, that this was would put other soldiers, other service members in danger. It absolutely, if we did nothing, it would put other service members' lives in danger. And so here we are still fighting for what is right, and getting all this kind of breaking news because we've earned the trust of so many people, and now they're sharing information with us, and we want to say thank you so much. Thank you so much for all the information, because it has been so important, and um, putting, driving our government to giving us our son's remains and getting accountability. So I think that that is huge breaking news on so many fronts. The John Kelly news and the connection, uh, the evil connection, you know, um, because if he wanted peace there, he could do it. He had the power to do it, and he had the president's ear to do it. And yet, he I would say it was mutiny, absolutely being a traitor. Is it treasonous? I think it is. I would lean it to being treasonous. So this is why this is so important to share and to get out, for the safety of our military installations and our service members, our soldiers. So thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Anicia, for coming on every day. It's just, we just love you. We just really, really appreciate it so much. And please share this information because it's just jaw dropping, and it's all coming out. All the truth is coming out. So thank you so much. God bless you, and I'll be back tomorrow, God willing. Bye bye.